Okay, so for our lesson today, we are going to summarize everything that we have learned from our discussion. So today is we're gonna go back from the top hanggang sa pinakadulo. So, on the second meeting that we're gonna be doing for this week is we're gonna be discussing some about the sampling methods. Kasi that's a little bit confusing to you and you don't know what sampling method ang gagamitin ninyo. So, that would be on our second meeting. But for now, let's focus on research from the preliminary pages to chapter 5. Okay? So, the content of this lesson contains the overall summary about the thesis that you are making right now as a review of this entire work. There will be a brief discussion from chapter 1 to 5 as well as the entire format of your research. Okay? So, always remember this is just a throwback para ma-refresh kayo, maalala nyo kung ano nga ba yung laman ng inyong research. Okay, so these are the contents of our lesson. First, we're gonna deal with research, types of research, preliminary pages, chapter 1 to 3, chapter 4 to 5, and the last part is the short overview of statistics. I'm not gonna be giving you an in-depth discussion of statistics kasi meron talaga kayong subject for that. So just to make it clear, I just wanted to discuss to you the sampling methods that you will be encountering or you will be using in your research. Kasi yan yung madalas tinatanong sa atin ng ating panel. So sa inyong defense na darating is tatanungin ulit kayo ng panel nyo about your sampling method. That's why I included it in our discussion. So first, dito tayo sa curiosity. It's not part of your research, but curiosity, made all the possibilities. Okay, our endless ability to ask for whys is the reason why we live in this uncertain present and future. Okay, so this comes to our mind. Why do we conduct research? So we conduct research because we're curious. There are a lot of things that has no answer, and we are seeking for answers. And because of being curious, we're doing some research. So yung parang simpleng gusto mong malaman kung may bago na yung boyfriend mo. So, naku-curious ka, magre-research ka, titignan mo yung profile niya, something like that. That is already research. Okay? But when it comes to academics, it's in a different form. Like, we're gonna be dealing with some current issues, mga problems, di ba? Kaya nung mga una-una, I asked you, try to think of a problem that you want to solve, and then that's what we're going to do in our research. Okay? So, going back to those times, Project 1, Research in Daily Life 1, I asked you and you presented some problems and now you are seeking for answers kasi andun na kayo sa part na magpapasagot na kayo ng questionnaire. So now let's deal with research. What is research? So just imagine a game of chess. Using your mind to get the answers to your victory is like doing research too. So imagine a chess game. This is another example. Okay, you don't play chess game just because you play the game. You play the game with strategy. There are some methods that you use maybe or techniques in order for you to win or in order for you to reach the end, 'di ba? So, as you go through, as you encounter problems in a chess game, you're looking for some answers for that. Okay, so parang ganun din yung research, no? So you cannot play chess without doing research on how to play the game and how to win it. So if you want to play chess, you have to learn it first. So that's what we're doing right now. We're learning how to do it. And then after that is we're gonna apply what we have learned. Okay? So it's like playing a game. So basically, research is the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Okay? So, kaya magtataka kayo, minsan may mga topics na nare-reject because there are answers already. Let's say ang thesis topic ninyo is problems encountered in online class setting. If you try to Google that, Google will answer your question. Kasi na-solve na yung problem na yon. That's why some topics are rejected. Okay? So we're asking, oh, try to think further. Or if you want to focus on online class, try to think of another problem. Okay? Ganun yung ginagawa, 'di ba? So, always remember that pag tumungtong kayo ng college, pakinggan nyo mabuti itong mga sinasabi ko sa inyo. You will be, you will be very grateful kasi things are easier. Kasi nung time namin, we don't have thesis. So, it's like fresh na fresh pa talaga when it comes to college. Pero advantage ko kasi nung ako'y high school is may thesis kami kay Sir Eric. Kasi si Sir Eric ay aking teacher. Okay? Nag-research kami nung grade 10. Pero yung iba kasi hindi yun na-encounter. So, but I'm not very good at it. Like, I'm not the best. I just learned to love the subject when I was in college. Like, when I understand everything clearly. Okay? So, just like what I said before, in order for you to make your thesis easy, para mapadali nyo yung thesis nyo, you have to enjoy it. That's why, when I asked you to make a title, choose a problem that you want to solve. Kasi if there is a problem na curious ka talaga, you want answers for that, magiging excited ka na ma-solve yung problem na yon. However, kung ang ginawa mo lang is pumunta ka sa Google, nag-search ka ng problem, gagawan mo ng thesis, you don't feel it kasi it's not from you. It's not a problem that you want to solve. Okay? Sa part namin is, yung thesis namin is, we are really, really seeking for answers when it comes to poetry. That's why we loved our thesis. Kasi ang dami namin na-discover, ang dami-dami namin natututunan. Okay? Kasi guys, honestly speaking, uh, though research is challenging, it is very enjoyable. Okay? Nakaka-enjoy siya. Kasi yung mga problems ng society today, you can solve it using your thesis. Pwedeng, let's say your research is about racism. Gusto mo ma-solve yon? You can using your thesis. You can also, you want to solve the inequality when it comes to gender using your thesis. It feels very, you feel important kasi you are solving an issue na hindi ma-solve ng ibang tao. Okay, so that's the point of thesis. Okay, so when there's a time when your topic is rejected, you can always make a new one, something related to the problem that you want to solve. Kasi guys, talagang kapag nasa Google na siya, it will be rejected na. So ngayon, senior high tayo, medyo maluwag pa, pero sa college, I am telling you, it will be rejected most of your thesis today. So, if you're asking, ma'am, pwede po ba namin magamit yung thesis namin ngayon sa college? It depends. Okay? It depends. It's already done. So, na-solve na eh. Why are you going to use it again? 'Di ba? So, you should not use it again. So, moving on. Dito na tayo sa types of research. As we go back, we have two types of research. We have qualitative and quantitative. So there are two main categories, qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative research method involve using numbers to measure data. So dito muna tayo sa quantitative. Again, when we say quantitative, you can measure it. Like for example, let's say, dami ng babae sa isang klase. You can count it, right? Dami ng lalaki sa isang klase, you can count it as well. Like, gaano karaming burger ang makakain ko in 1 hour. That's also countable. However, if I say, what do I feel when I'm given this situation? Let's say, binigyan ako ng isang sitwasyon, anong mararamdaman ko? Can you count that? No. So that's the opposite of quantitative, which is qualitative. So sa qualitative, we are observing things. Okay? So, in quantitative, researchers can use statistical analysis to find connections and meaning in the data. So, for the case of qualitative research, is people use observation, and then after observing things is they lead to a conclusion. Let's say, you wanted to know if sa senior high, ano ba talagang mas madaldal, babae o lalaki? Hindi mo yun pwede gawing questionnaire. Kasi through questionnaire, you can't measure kung madaldal ang isang tao. What you're going to do is, you have to observe every classroom every day and observe which one is noisier. Is it the girls? Is it the boys? So that is a qualitative research. You observe, and based on your observation is you come up with a conclusion. That's why we don't really use statistics in qualitative. Yes, we can use, but it's not always. Hindi nyo talagang always magagamit. About person R, Kendall's coefficient. You can't use that in qualitative. Okay, so moving on. So let's talk about the preliminary pages. So nagsisimula na tayo sa parts ng thesis. We're done with the meaning. Okay, this is the preliminary pages. It contains the research abstract, table of contents, dedication, messages of the researchers. So, preliminary pages, ang page number niyan ay iba. Your page number niyan is like this, right? It doesn't use numbers. It uses Roman numerals. Keep that in mind. Okay, so ang first part ng ating preliminary pages is this one. First is your title page. Of course, hindi dapat nilalagyan ng page number and title page, but it is understandable that it is the I. Okay? So after that is we have the so-called acknowledgement. How do you spell that? I think it's like this. Okay, acknowledgement. So when we say acknowledgement, these are the people that you want to thank. Like, thank you sa advisor namin, thank you sa aming grammarian, thank you sa aming panel members. So, lahat ng tao na nag-contribute sa thesis nyo, papasalamatan ninyo, except you, right? You're gonna say thank you to your advisor, to the panel. If you want to say thank you to your parents, you can. And then sa bottom part yata is you say thank you to God. So, that is the acknowledgement page. Okay? So, siguro na-encounter nyo na to sa mga scientific research ninyo, right? So after that is we have the I'm not sure, but I think it's this one. Okay. I think it is the table of contents. But we'll see once we go on with our research. Just keep in mind, wala to sa PowerPoint. You have to listen carefully. We have the table of contents. You can take down notes if you want. Okay, then after that is we have the so-called abstract. Okay, what is abstract? It's like a summary of your entire research. Okay, so sa research is a summary of chapter 1 to 5. That's abstract. Okay, it is in paragraph form. Then after that is we have dedication. So dedication, each member will write their dedication. So this is your freedom page. Like, this research is dedicated to my parents for their loving support and whatever. It could be in a form of poetry, a song, a quote. Okay, it's up to you. It's your freedom page. Sa font style, pwede rin iba-iba ito. Pwede rin siyang may color. It's up to you. Okay, so this is your freedom page. And each member should write their dedication. So for example, ang grupo na ito ay si Maria, si Jose, at si Juan. Okay, si Maria, si Jose, at si Juan, may sarili-sarili silang page para sa kanilang dedication. Okay? So overall, please remember, this is the content of your preliminary pages. Ito ang laman niya. Okay? Don't forget. So moving on. Okay, I'll give 5 seconds if you're gonna copy this one from 1 to 5. Okay, so let's move on to our next part. Okay, so now let's go to chapter 1. So dito na tayo start na gantong page number. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so again, sa preliminary pages, iba yung page number. Of course, dahil chapter 1 page ito na nakalagay chapter 1, introduction. Of course, walang page number yon kasi siya ay parang first page ng chapter. But it's understandable that it is page 1. Okay, so this is the first chapter of a proposal, consists of several subheadings or sections: background, research questions, objectives, limitations, rationale, hypothesis, statement of problem, and methodology. Actually, hypothesis is optional, but it is required to be in your research because sometimes hypothesis is in chapter 2. In some research it's in chapter 1. But remember, hypothesis is not optional, okay? It's optional to be in chapter 1, but it should be there. It's either chapter 1 or chapter 2. So ito yung laman ng ating chapter 1. So this is in no particular order, okay? So first we have I'm gonna type it here. We have our introduction. Parts 2 ng chapter 1, ha? We have our introduction, of course. Yan yung mahabang paragraph na nasa pinakauna. Most of the time, it's 3 to 5 paragraphs. If you want it to 10 paragraphs, it could be. As long as it's still related to your research. And remember that it ends with your rationale. So what is rationale? Rationale is your purpose, your goal, okay? So that is rationale. So always remember, when your panel asks you a question, what's your rationale? It means anong purpose nyo? Anong goal nyo? Bakit nyo kinonduct your research? That's your rationale. Okay, remember, your introduction ends with your rationale. Okay, that last paragraph should be your rationale. Okay, so next, it depends on the format as well. But most of the time, after the introduction is we have the statement of problem. Okay, so statement of problem, babasahin ko yung definition based dun sa pagkakasunod-sunod na ginagawa ko. Okay, so the statement of problem is the most important part of the research, which composed of the important questions to be answered in the research. Yan yung, what are the effects of ganito? Is there a significant relationship? What is the degree of agreement? What action plan could be made? Okay, so that is our statement of problem. Okay, so this is the most important part of your research. Keep that in mind. Why? Kasi if you don't have statement of problem, what's your research? Ano yung gusto mong masagot? Nothing? So, it is important. Hindi siya pwede maging optional. It is in chapter 1. Okay, so after the statement of problem is you can include the significance of this study. Sometimes, after the statement of problem, meron pa silang background, no? Background of the research, parang ganun. Pero, check ko yung format kasi may bago tayong format, by the way, guys. There's a possibility, I'm not sure yet, kasi hindi ko sure pa kung yung format natin is the same with the new format. Kasi ngayon is, we want things to be organized as mandated in our school, is we have to follow the format given to us. May format na ibibigay sa atin bago. So, sana is hindi siya masyadong magalaw. Okay? Background of the study yata. But I don't really see this often. It depends. Kasi yung background of the study, pwedeng nakalagay na siya sa introduction. So, I'll remove that na. Okay? Sometimes it's included. So, after the statement of problem is we have the significance of the study. So, what is that? So, these are the people who can benefit from the study. Sinong makikinabang? Okay? So, this is, dito kayo medyo nadadali kapag defense, diba? Kasi sa significance of the study, it should be clear kung sino talaga yung makikinabang. Let's say, look at your title first, look at your SOP. Anong respondents ninyo? So, let's say ang respondents ninyo ay students. Okay? So, if your respondents are students, it means sa significance of the study ninyo is it starts with the principal, the teachers, and the students, the future researchers. Yun lang. Okay, you don't need to include your parents, you don't need to include Department of Education, kasi sa isang school or sa school ka lang naman and then students lang naman yung respondents mo. Okay? But if your respondents are teachers, pwede mo na idagdag dyan yung DepEd, for example, or next principal, and then teachers, then future researchers. You don't need to include students. Kasi, ang respondents nyo ay teachers. Okay? So, keep that in mind. Hindi kayo basta nakapaglagay dahil significance. Check ko lang spelling. Okay, hindi porket tungkol sa school is laging nandun na si students, laging nandun si parents. No. Oh, let's say naman ang respondents ninyo ay parents. If your respondents are parents, ang makikinabang dyan ay parents and students. But it depends. If it's related to school, it's parents, students. But if it's not related to school, it would be parents only, and then future researchers. Okay? So after the significance of the studies, we have the scope and limitation. Okay, so scope and limitation is it explains what will be the boundaries of your research. Sometimes you can include here your respondents. Sinong respondents nyo? Hanggang saan lang kayo? Let's say, ang nakalagay sa inyo ay private schools of Tanawan City. Okay, so kung ang research ninyo is private schools of Tanawan City, you can include there na this research only includes the schools Faith, STI, ano pa bang school dito? Lako, and many more. Kung ano lang yung schools na pupuntahan ninyo sa research ninyo, yun lang ang ilalagay nyo sa scope and limitation para makita ng panel ninyo kung saan kayo nagpasagot. Okay? So again, ito po ang laman ng chapter 1. Okay, so if we include hypothesis, let's say we included hypothesis. Ano? If we include hypothesis, it is usually under statement of problem. Okay? So, ang hypothesis naman is, it just answers the question from the statement of problem. Like yung magiging result. For example, ang inyong thesis ay effects of online class to senior high school students. Okay? So, pwede ang hypothesis nyo ay, there are no effects. Ganon. There are no effects or there are no problems encountered in online class in the senior high school department. Parang ganon. Okay? So again, those are the parts of chapter 1. Okay, moving on. I hope it's clear. Next, let's go to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is just short. Kasi it's just related literature and related studies. So, ito lang yung mga support ng inyong thesis. So, we have the related literatures and related studies, which will be of great help to support your research. Yan yung mga according to mga tao. Kailangan nyo lang maghanap ng mga tao na nagsabi na ganito, na magsusupport sa inyong thesis. That's it. Okay, so next is we have the theoretical framework. Theoretical framework is the backbone of your study. Why? Kasi dito nag-base, ito yung theory. Dito yung theory na nag-base yung study nyo. Okay? Kaya nga sabi ko nun sa inyo, if you're conducting your research, maghanap muna kayo ng theory. Kasi sometimes, yung iba, nagko-conduct sila ng research pero walang theory na applicable. Kaya I suggest before na unahin nyo yung paghahanap ng theory and then gawan nyo siya ng research. Next, we have the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework shows the flow of the study. Okay, so yan yung tatlong box na nilalagay natin sa thesis natin. Yung tatlong box na nilalagay natin sa thesis, si input, throughput, at saka output. Tapos may arrow-arrow dito. So that is our conceptual framework. So the conceptual framework, ipapakita niya lang yung simula ng study mo hanggang sa dulo kung ano mangyayari. And then the last part is the definition of terms. So this section will help us understand deeper the most important words that can be seen in the research title. Nakita nyo ba yon? Most important words, hindi most difficult words. Kasi yung iba, halimbawa, may nakita silang kakaibang words sa thesis nila. Ilalagay nila sa definition of terms, but you don't need to do that. Always remember, kagaya nga ng sabi ng panel nyo dati, ang ilalagay nyo lang sa definition of terms is mga words galing sa inyong title. Sometimes SOP. Okay, but most of the time, it's from your title only. Okay? So, let's say effects of online class to the senior high school department. Let's say ganon. So, you have to define online class and senior high school department. Okay? Yun lang. Okay, moving on. Let's go to chapter 3. By the way guys, ang parts ng chapter 2 ay ito. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sunod-sunod to. Okay? Related literatures, theoretical, conceptual, definition of terms. But don't worry, magbibigay ako ng pattern ng top ng format para makita ninyo, reviewers sa exam. Okay, next we have chapter 3. So the chapter 3 contains the research design and methods in the study. Anong statistics ang ginamit niyo? Anong ginamit niyo para makuha yung respondents ninyo? Dito siya malalaman. Ano ang design ng inyong research? So we have, we're gonna see here the respondents, the statistical tool, 'di ba? So ano nga ba ang mga laman ng chapter 3? Okay, so chapter 3. Let me see first. Natilas yata ako, guys. Nangangati ako. Okay. How do you edit that? Okay, type ko na lang ulit. Chapter 3. Okay, so number 1, we have the research design. Yes. Research design. You also include here the data gathering procedure. Oh, no. Research instrument first. Yan. So, sa research instrument, that's your questionnaire, right? Instrument. Next, number 3 is your respondents. Respondents of the study. Then we have the data gathering procedure. So, what is data gathering procedure? Ikukwento nyo lang kung paano kayo nag-gather ng data. Like, nagsulat kami ng letter, nagpapirma kami sa mga pipirma, tapos nagpasagot kami ng questionnaire, ganon. Yun lang yung data gathering procedure. Next is our statistical tools. Okay, ano mga statistics ang ginamit ninyo? So, saan po natin ilalagay yung sampling method? Pag tinanong, anong sampling method ang ginamit nyo? So, makikita po yan sa respondents of the study. So, this format can change, depende po sa binigay ng school. Okay, so moving on, let's go to chapter 4. Okay, I hope it's clear, chapter 3. Okay. So, dito na tayo sa research results and analysis. So, this chapter reviews the results and analysis of the qualitative data, the compilation of the questionnaire, and the results and analysis of the quantitative findings of the study. Your data will be presented using figures or tables, which is aligned to the statement of problem. So, for the chapter 4, walang parts ang chapter 4. Why? Because it is your SOP being answered. Okay. So, let's say ang ating, SOP number 1, bakit bibitaw siya? Okay, so let's say ang ating SOP number 1 ay what are the effects? Or what are the problems encountered in online class? Kuwari lang to ha, pero hindi to pwede ha, yung gantong ano. I'm just giving you an example. So, let's say yan ang SOP number 1. So, sa chapter 4, this is what it looks like. Okay. So, dahil siyang SOP number 1, nakalagay dito, naka-bold. Naka-bold to ha. If problems encountered in online class. Yan. Naka-bold yan dyan. Tapos, meron tayong table. Okay, let's say table 1. 'Di ba? Ayan. Tapos nakalagay dito yung table nun. Okay, let's say may table dito, ganyan ang itsura. And then, i-explain mo yung laman ng table dito. Okay, so blah 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 blah. Okay? So 'di ba tinuruan ko na kayo kung paano magsulat ng chapter 4? First, kailangan niyo munang basahin yung table, and then after that is you're gonna look at the measurements and then create a brief conclusion. Then after ng conclusion, maghahanap ka ng tao na nagso-support nung conclusion mo. Okay? So yan. Ganyan po ang itsura ng chapter 4. Kung ano yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng SOP, ganun din yung laman ng chapter 4. Okay, so there is no parts for that. It's research results and analysis. Okay, let's go to our last part. So our last part is summary, findings, conclusions, and recommendation. So this chapter presents the summary of the findings, conclusions, and recommendations based on the data analyzed in the previous chapter. Um, wait, asan ang ating pen? Ito. Okay, so baliktarin ko to ano? Kasi findings muna bago conclusion. Okay, again, it's type ko na lang. So, nakalagay dyan, chapter 5. Okay, chapter 5. So, ang una po is findings. Ma'am, ano po ang laman ng findings? So, si findings, ang laman niya ay numbers. Yung mga results sa numbers. Okay? So, next, ang conclusion natin is yung conclusion. Okay, so bibigyan ko kayo ng clue kung paano siya gawin. Okay? So, 'di ba, if you try to remember, 'di ba nagsulat kayo sa chapter 4? Sa chapter 4, nagsulat muna kayo ng, binasa niyo muna yung laman ng table. And then after nun is nagsulat kayo ng conclusion, 'di ba? 'Yon. So, itong numbers na ito, sa findings siya nakalagay. That's why chapter 5 can be done in just 1 hour. Okay, kahit nga 30 minutes, kaya mo matapos ang chapter 5. But you have to rephrase. You just have to include here the most important. Okay, so let's say problems encountered. Ang pinakamalaking problem nila is internet connection. So, pwede nating sabihin dito na 50% of the students encountered problems when it comes to internet connection. Yun lang. Yung pinaka-large number or smallest number, kung depende sa research ninyo. And then, yung conclusion mo dito is ikakopy mo lang, ilalagay mo lang dito. But you have to reword. It shouldn't be talagang copy-paste. Kailangan mo siya i-reword. So, yun lang. Ganun lang ang chapter 5. It's very easy. Okay. So, the last part of our chapter 5 is the recommendation. Okay, so what is recommendation? So, recommendation, yan yung mga marirecommend mo sa mga tao, okay, based sa research mo. Okay, let's say, ang kinalabasan ng research mo ay, ang mga problem na na-encounter nila ay internet. Okay, so sa recommendation mo, pwede mo sabihin na, the school may provide some internet options for the students. Example lang naman yun. Okay? So, based talaga sa result. Pero let's say, hindi nila problem ang internet connection. So, hindi mo yun pwede i-recommend. Kasi hindi naman nila yung problem. Okay? So, let's continue further. So, conclusion. Conclusion is intended to help the reader understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. A conclusion is not merely a summary of your points or a restatement of your research problem, but a synthesis of key points. Okay, so yun na nga, in-explain ko naman sa inyo kung ano conclusion. But always remember guys, ang pagkakasulat ng findings at conclusion ay the same sa SOP. I'll show you. So let's say ang SOP ko ay ganito. 1, 2, 3. Yan, ganyan ang SOP ko. So, ibig sabihin, ang findings ko, ganito din, ay findings ko. Ang findings ko ay 1, 2, 3. Align sa SOP. And then let's say conclusion na. Conclusion. Kailangan 1, 2, 3 din siya. Align sa SOP. How about recommendation? Okay, recommendation could be gaano kadami mo gusto. Okay, basta ang pinakadulo niyan ay the future researchers may the researchers may conduct further research with regards to this study. Yun ang pinakadulo ng recommendation. Okay? Sa recommendation, kahit ilan yan, ikaw bahala. Okay? But the minimum of 3. Okay? Minimum of 3. Okay? So, let's continue. So, let's go to findings. So, findings is the principal outcomes of a research project. What the project suggested, revealed, or indicated. This usually refers to the totality of outcomes rather than the conclusions or recommendations drawn for them. Okay? So, yun nga, numbers. Kung weighted mean na ilalagay mo dyan. Okay? Numbers. Okay? Next, recommendations. Recommendations are based on the results of your research and indicate the specific measures or directions that can be taken. For example, a clinical study might have implications for cancer research and might recommend against the use of particular hazardous substance. Yun nga. So let's say ay may kinalaman sa cancer yung research nila. So ang recommendation nila is yung mga bagay na pwedeng mag-lead sa cancer, you have to prevent using them or exposing yourself to them. So how do we write recommendations? So it must be written in a form of suggestion, not a requirement or an order. So what is the wrong way of writing it? The school should. This is wrong. Using should. Kasi yung should parang inuutos mo, gawin mo to. Okay? That's not the correct way. The correct way is the school may. It is in a form of suggestion. Okay? The schools may, the schools can, try, ganon. Okay? It shouldn't be in a form of an order. It should be in a form of suggestion. Okay? So, let me see the next part. Okay, so next is appendix. After ng chapter 5 nyo, may bibliography pa. Okay? Alam niyo naman yung bibliography, laman niya references using APA style. And then after ng bibliography is we have appendix. Appendix contains the supplementary material that is not an essential part of the text itself, but which may be helpful in providing more comprehensive understanding of the research problem. So ito ang laman ng appendix. Letter of approval, validation sheet, research questionnaire, computation of the statistical treatment. However, si computation of statistical treatment is optional. Okay? So, ano ang laman ng appendix nyo? Appendix A, letter of approval. Appendix B, validation sheet. Yan yung papapirmahan nyo sa questionnaire. Appendix C, letter to the respondents. Appendix D, research questionnaire. Appendix A, B, C, D, E, computation of statistical treatment. Okay, but it is optional. Appendix E is optional. It could be there, it could not be there. Depende sa format na ibibigay sa inyo. And the last part of your research is your curriculum vitae. So the curriculum vitae, also known as CV or VITA, is a comprehensive statement of your educational background, teaching, and research experience. It is the standard representation of credentials within academia. For a position at a research-intensive university, the CV will accentuate research. So the last part of your research is the curriculum vitae. Anong itsura nito? Ang itsura po niyan ay mukhang resume. Dito mo ipapakilala ang sarili mo. What's your name? What's your contact number? Saan ka pinanganak? Who's your parents? What's your religion? What's your birthday? Ano yung saan ka pumasok ng elementary? Saan ka pumasok ng high school? Saan ka pumasok ng college? Pero wala pa kayo doon. Okay? So, I'll give you a format soon. It will be part of your next PT. Okay? Ang next PT nyo po, supposedly, is Chapter 4-5 Curriculum Vitae. Okay? Kaya that's why I'm telling you to do it now. Like this week kayo magpapasagot. Okay? So, saglit lang naman magpasagot, guys. You can do it in 2 to 3 days. Okay? Depende sa respondents. Okay? So, again, you have to pasagot your questionnaire this week para next week is makapag-start na kayo ng chapter 4 or makapagpa-start na tayo magpa-statistics. Okay? So, sad to say, medyo may makakain ng konti sa vacation nyo, but I'm not gonna be meeting you on vacation. Like, magsusulat lang kayo ng chapter 4 and 5. Siguro dun sa mga mababagal, abutin kayo ng bakasyon. Kung mabilis kayo, edi masaya. Kasi makakapagbakasyon kayo agad. Okay? So, this is the last part of your thesis. Okay. So, that ends the part 1 of our discussion for today. Again, we discussed the parts of the research. We started from preliminary pages, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one is the curriculum vitae. Okay, don't forget, bago mag-appendix is meron pa tayong bibliography. Okay?